Yeah.
Okay, we're now live. So welcome everyone. I am pleased to host this event with the Lightning Club. And I'll give you a little bit of information about that and then I'll hand it over to Earle. The Lightning Club was created this summer. Well, it's been in the workings since the beginning of the year as a way to thank people who are donating to the Asian Classics Input Project. And it's basically a donor club and it's open to anyone. As long as you're supporting ACIP, you get to have access to these teachings once a month at the least. And we are also connected to an international group. So Club de Oro is here as well from Mexico with Pau, who is the director. And we also have clubs in Russia, in Europe, and Singapore, like all over the world. So you're actually connecting to a larger community of amazing beings who have prioritized this really important task of preserving wisdom. So we want to help you also have realizations because of this act of supporting wisdom. If we can help you rejoice in that and to realize how important and profound it is to actually support these teachings that cause realizations, then our goal is to, level up together as a community. And so this is a place where we can learn and study together and get to know each other. And the members join a private Facebook group so we can all become friends. Oh, it's so nice to see new people joining. So Earle Birney is someone who I really wanted to bring on to teach because when I first met him, I was like, oh my gosh, he's one of those 3-year retreatants. Like they're so like special looking and like what they've been in silence for 3 years and he's been studying for a really long time and knows the teachings. I've been able to work with him recently on YSI and he just remembers like everything that he's learned. And I'm really honored to have you share your wisdom with us. I am so excited for everyone to meet you who doesn't already know you. Um, yeah, and so if anyone's just joining and you speak Spanish, there is a Spanish channel. So you can click on interpretation down below and select Spanish. And that's all I'm going to say for now. And if you don't already, sorry, one more thing. If you don't already know, Asian Classics Input Project actually locates ancient texts in caves and libraries and private collections. They preserve them, they scan them, they digitize them, and share them for scholars for free. So this is the nonprofit that you're supporting by supporting Lightning Club. All proceeds go to ACIP. And we also have organizations that translate these texts, and we might hear a little bit from those texts from Earle's talk. So I will stop talking and Earle, please take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Jax. It's good to see some familiar faces. Welcome, Paul, Nikita. Diego, turn your camera on, man. I don't trust you. How's it going, Nikita? There you are. Apache, thanks for translating. If it goes too fast, just give me like a signal. Something to know to slow down. I'll try to speak slowly-ish. ACIP is ALL is obviously been integral to what we've studied for decades. So it's cool to be linked to, probably the most amazing project Geshe Michael's ever done, in my opinion. One that has effects on spiritual study across the world. So that's cool. I moved to New York a little while ago. I'm also teaching at 3 Jewels, so quick shout out to 3 Jewels, the best enlightenment studio in the city. Doing some very successful transition to 2020 and online learning and meditation teacher trainings, and yoga teacher training is coming up, and so happy to represent, be part of that team. Today, I wanted to talk about happiness, and that seemed worthwhile on a Thanksgiving weekend. So, and I wanted to approach it, it's the same stuff. If you've been studying Geshe Michael, nothing new today. We're going to talk about seeds, we're going to talk about 4 steps, but I'd like to try to frame it in maybe some words that we're not super familiar with, words that might be used more in a university setting or a psychology setting, or a setting that people, or words that people might be using outside of our group, and to share ideas in a way that we can share them with other people that maybe aren't so steeped or interested in a Tibetan Buddhist framework or a Buddhist framework. So that's the goal. I'm going to share a screen. Hopefully this will work. Chelsea, Kermit. Good. Let me just get it set up. Okay. So the class today is on happiness, and my hope is that we can get some ideas, talk about some ideas in a way that we can take them home and chew on them, and maybe have some new practice ideas and incorporate it into our daily spiritual routine. So 2020 has been a time for me. I think for a lot of people, it's been a time for change, racial change, political change, personal change, Zoom meetings, masks, and social distancing is now a word. Like now, if you cough in public, it's kind of like totally socially not okay. And working from home, and even if we don't want it, we often resist change. Even if it's good for us, we resist change. But change can be like the lily that grows out of the mud. So I want to talk about change is being forced on us. So how can we slow down or embrace it, or what's the upside? Pachi, how's the speed? Okay, I'll try to keep it mellow. So I think that most people, we do want change. Like we're struggling with negative emotions. We want to be more control of our responses. We don't want to lose our crap so easily. And I think we often talk about it from a point of eliminating negative emotions, eliminating kleshas, getting rid of negative thoughts. So I want to talk about it from a perspective of maybe we can look at it from the beautiful side. Like, can we work on effectively changing negative emotions by focusing on the opposite, by focusing on the positive, by focusing on all the good things? Like, instead of being so immersed in the negative, we got to change the negative, change our seeds, change the anger. Can we like focus on the happiness and the joy and eliminate the negativity that way? Like flip the tables and turn the tables and do it that way. So here's a poem by Hafiz that illustrates that. It says, I used to live in a cramped house with confusion and pain, but then I met the friend, the teacher. the guru, and started getting drunk and singing all night. Confusion and pain started acting nasty, making threats. With talk like this, if you don't stop that, all that fun, we're leaving. Like if we can sing and dance all night, and this was so true in 3-year retreat when things got hard, like focusing on the joy seemed to dispel the negativity more than fighting the negativity. And that makes the confusion and pain, make the threats of like, if you don't stop all that fun, we got a trampoline in 3-year retreat. And at one point we asked somebody to send in some golf clubs and golf balls. And we were hitting golf balls off the trampoline because things had gotten a little hard. Some challenging problems had arisen. And it was the best thing to hear laughter in a 3-year retreat kind of rippling out down the mountainside. And then the confusion and pain, maybe that drives it away better than fighting the confusion and the pain. So by focusing on let's get drunk on the happiness and see if confusion and pain leave on their own. So that brings us to what I'm thinking of is the happiness project. Like, what if we talked about spiritual practice? What if we called it the happiness project, or the ultimate happiness project, or the world happiness project? Like, isn't that our job description? Isn't that what we say we do? Or is that wrong? Is this idea of the happiness project, is that just another samsara trap? So I want to talk about 2 types of happiness. The first one, here's a quote from a famous thinker. I believe the purpose of life is to seek happiness. Whether one believes in religion or not, whether the belief of that religion or this religion, we're all seeking something better in life. So the very motion of life is towards happiness. The inclination of life is to move from pleasant away from bad. So is that wrong? Or is that survival? Or is it possible? Like, can we be happy all the time? Or is that the purpose of life? Because another great thinker, Albert Einstein, kind of has a different approach. He's like, that's ridiculous. He says the well-being and happiness never appeared to me as an absolute aim. I'm even inclined to compare such moral aims to the ambitions of a pig. It's like this quest, this very drive to be happy all the time, what a ridiculous idea. It just leads to gluttony and sex, drugs, and rock and roll and excess. It's like this drive for happiness is the moral ambition of a pig. So who's right? So what I want to do right now is to take a couple minutes, and we were going to do breakout groups, but I think we'll have I don't want to have an issue with language and things like that. So what I'd like to just do it as a couple minute contemplation where we all can just contemplate these questions. Like in a silent moment here, we'll take a few minutes, we'll take 5 minutes and take a look at these questions. Should we strive for happiness? Like, to what extent should that be our goal in life? Or is it even achievable? And then the second question is, if it's true that we all strive for happiness, if that's true that this is what our life is about and has been about since eternity, why are we failing so miserably? Why, as a culture, as a society, why aren't we happy yet? Why haven't we figured it out yet? So we'll take 5 minutes, kind of throw these ideas around in your mind, and then we'll share some ideas. Clear? Thumbs up? Understandable? All right. So do your thing. We'll start, we'll have 5 minutes to dissect these questions. Okay, let's call that 5 minutes. And we'll take the first one. Who's got some conclusions about the value of should we strive for happiness? Is that a worthwhile life endeavor? Or is it the moral ambition of a pig?
I can share something. So I'm hanging out with a friend this weekend, and he seems to be in not a very good place. And I was sort of doing my best to help him get to the next whatever thing or level of happiness or something. And he just kept throwing it back in my face, like this sort of very question. And I had a really hard time with it. I got so mixed up. I mean, we're told in this lineage that's what we all do. But then when it came to like, is that what we should do? I got really confused. I had a really hard time. So this question's perfect for me now.
As long as you get an answer, or maybe sometimes the question is better than an answer. Yeah, that's timely. Interesting. Anyone else? What's the thoughts on if we strive, if it is true that we strive for happiness, how come we're not? We all understand seeds. I'm assuming if we've been here, we've had that idea jammed into our brain over and over.
I can share when I find myself kind of being like when joy is going out and I feel some maybe kind of anger is coming close, like mental afflictions, and I observe myself and think, oh, okay, it's a mental affliction. Okay, what should I do? And I think that I have to find somebody and make them happy. And when we strive for our happiness, we strive for it to ourselves. And what works for me in that case is to do what Geshe-la taught us to do in last Lamrim retreat, just to think about all the people around. I will take care of you. 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 And it works for me. It's just like you holding yourself and taking out of the what from, so taking out from river, I don't know, on your hair. So it's about just changing that affliction into joy. It is bringing joy, and it just disappear. I used it a couple of times. It's so great.
Yeah.
When we start to think about others, it changes our thinking about me. I want me. Ay. I want.
And so does it work? Does it make us happy thinking of others?
Yeah, it works. For me, it works. And it's what brings our happiness. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
If it's so simple, how come it hasn't caught on to the rest of the world? Like, it seems if it was simple as that, then we would all be happy and we'd all buy into that system.
Well, I think it's not simple. Like it's
Oh, good. We've got a mom-daughter fight now. This is going to be awesome.
to me, it's just the habits. Really, like you know what you want. You want. I know I want to be happy, but I have my habits that, for some reason, they are stronger than my desire to be happy, and they just pull me back. That's what I find for myself. That's what is happening, and I don't like it, but sometimes I'm forced to experience that.
Yeah, like even if we know that the answer, the habits pull us back into our own crap.
I want to share also. Should we strive for happiness? I think that yes, we should, but the difference is to which kind of happiness should we strive, and why aren't we happy? It's because Peter Myrtle, in his lectures and teachings, he often puts this song, I can get no satisfaction. So, I can get no satisfaction. So when we strive, and this question is really complicated for me because I have small kids, and these little things I really make them happy. And I see them happy, them being happy, and I understand that I already can't be happy just because, for example, I asked my son this summer, what do you wish? So what do you wish? And he says that he wishes to have all pies in the world. So and I thought this wish is so simple, and this will make him happy, just a pie. And I asked myself, will I be happy if I will receive a pie? And I understood that no, because I have too many thoughts in my head, I will not even notice this pie. So I think that for older, I don't know, I'm 30, it becomes really complicated to be happy. And we need something more, not about satisfaction to be happy. And if maybe when we will get it, how to be happy, then we can make this world better. I believe, I hope so.
Yeah, you touched on something that is the next slide. So that's perfect intro in talking about, what kind of happiness are we talking about? Is it true we can't get any satisfaction? That's a really important question, and I do agree it's super confusing. So let's look into it. Let's dive a little deeper into that idea. And thank you for sharing your insights. I want to talk about two types of happiness. So maybe those two statements aren't as contradictory as I tried to make them. The Einstein and the other quote, maybe they're referring to two different kinds of happiness. And so I want to break this down into hedonic happiness. So Pachi, to translate hedonic, I don't mean like hedonism, like getting drunk or it just means like an external happiness we get from something external to us, pleasure we get from the world. Okay, so that could be from alcohol or drugs, or it could be something very beautiful. Like I remember when my dad used to come home from work when I was 5, my brother and I would wait for him he would take the bus home, and we would wait for the sound of the bus, and then we would hear the bus, and he would come down the road, and he'd open the door, and my brother and I would just jump on him, attack him, and he would pick us up in his arms. And I often reflect like how amazing that would be for a parent to get to come home to that, have their two kids like just jump on them, and like, what's wrong with that? Like, why is that why is that a bad thing? Like we say, oh, because it doesn't last. It's not that's not happiness because it doesn't last. Or like, the happiness from like turning off the alarm clock on a Saturday morning. We finally don't have MTT training this weekend. Awesome. That's great. Or like the little things like checking something off on the to-do list, or watching TikTok videos, or baking bread. All these things are awesome and they're important. Like having a roof over our head and having money to, like, the lower Maslow hierarchy stuff is important, but we know that there's no connection between that and happiness. Once our essential needs are met, roof, food, there is a zero connection between happiness and income. After, like, in America, I think it's like $10,000 or $15,000 last report I looked. That ain't much money. This was a little while ago, so let's call it 20,000. It's not much. And in the youth work that I do with kids in the States have the most access to money, the most access to technology, the most access, the most wealth of any group of kids anywhere at any time in recorded history. They're the richest kids in the world in history. And they're also the most violent, depressed, medicated, suicidal group anywhere in the world ever. So what are we going to do? Give them more crap? Give people more stuff? Like, it's not working, right? It's clear. It doesn't work. Like, we can't arrange the puzzle pieces of life. Like, if I get the right job and the right partner, the right vacation, the right retreat, if I arrange these puzzle pieces of the things that we strive for, that we think cause happiness, if I can just arrange them in this picture called happiness, it doesn't work. We see that, but we don't, like Irina was saying, maybe it's because we have these habits that we just fall back into that trap of thinking, I'll just be happier if I have a little money at the end of the month. I can't stand giving all my money to the landlord every month. If I had more money, I'd be happier. But we know that's not true. So if we take that and compare it to a different kind of happiness, we'll call it eudaimonic happiness. And that's like the word comes from like euphoria or eurythmics or something that sounds really good. So it's like this happiness that comes from inside. It's what we can think of it as the happiness we get from what we bring to the world, not what we get from the world, but like someone else was saying earlier, like serving others, taking our focus away from us and putting it on them, like the pleasure we get from what we bring to the world. It's like an inner source of happiness. We can think of hedonic happiness as external and eudaimonic as an internal source of happiness. And so, like Alona was saying, like, let's talk about two different aspects of happiness. Maybe those two quotes, maybe they're not so contradictory. Maybe we're just talking about two different kinds of happiness. So let's talk about this hedonic source of happiness, like the happiness we get from things from the world. And what's the problem with that? The first one is, they call it hedonic adaptation or dimension usage. And it just means, this is the first noble truth in Buddhism. It's that happiness fades. Like the more we try to get happiness from something, it just seems to get harder and harder. Like when I go to on these trips with doing youth work with Mr. Wu, Pachi knows, we'd go to these fancy hotels and they're very beautiful. And actually, maybe you weren't on those trips, but anyway, the first day in a nice fancy hotel, it's like, oh my God, the rooms are so big. There's like multiple shower heads on different walls, and there's like this amazing view, and it's like the lobby is gorgeous and swimming pools, and it's like, wow, this is so nice. And then after 7 days of being in China with 200 8-year-olds, it's like, get me out of here. I'm done. And you don't notice like how nice the hotel room is anymore. There's something about seeing it 10 days in a row that makes it invisible to us. We get immune to it. The more we try to, I think that's one of the cool things about a sunset is it only lasts 10 minutes. If it lasted 3 hours, we'd be like 10 minutes in and we'd be bored. Yeah, the sunset's all right. I'm going to get ice cream though. When we try to get some happiness from the sunset, and then we try to get some happiness from the ice cream, and then we try to get some happiness from our partner, and then we try to get some happiness from something else. We just go from thing to thing to thing to thing. So there's this problem of usage where, one chocolate bar is great, but 50 is torture. The second one, zero-sum game, is a little complicated, but it means like, if happiness is from an object, it creates a commodity. So if happiness is like a vacation home in the Hamptons, fancy area, then there creates competition for those resources, and it makes it expensive. And so we have to compete for these limited resources of happiness. And it's this view of like, zero sum is like, there's only so much happiness to go around. And so we compete for those things that are supposed to make us happy. And it's a problem. The third one, stimulus driven, means that our happiness depends on an object. Like if I need this thing to be happy, if I need my kids to mug me when I jump on me when I come home from work to be happy, if I need those external things, the sunset, the ice cream, the kids, the whatever, then my happiness is always dependent on something. It's always driven by a stimulus. And if we remove that stimulus, then we remove our happiness. If we need something to be happy, then it requires us to get that thing to be happy. Happiness is around the corner. It's always dependent on a thing that we have to acquire and we have to keep and we have to not lose, right? When I get that thing, I'll be happy. So what's the alternative? let's talk about a more genuine form of happiness. So now we're talking about the eudaimonic happiness, the happiness from an internal source. And this is what, I mean, this looks very Buddhist. Ethics, meditation, wisdom. That's the 3 higher trainings. That's what we talk about all the time. This is a research on people that self-report as having a high degree of happiness. This is like the modern research into happiness, the happiness project. What is it that people who feel happy that have as components of their life that they attribute their happiness to? What do people attribute their happiness to? These 3 things. Maybe not in these words, but these ideas. 1, they have an idea of an ethical way of life. They live ethically, like they have a clean conscience from identifying their core values, their ethical values, and sticking to them. So they might not call it a 6 times a day book, but that's what they mean, right? And I think we should rename the 6 times a day book. It's a at least 6 times a day book, not the once every 6 weeks book that Earle does. Not a 6 times a day book. It should be at least 6 times a day, right? We should be checking our thoughts, words, and actions constantly. The book is a tool to get us to have that on our mind all the time. We do it formally 6 times, but I don't think we should be thinking of it as a 6 times a day thing. And people that self-report as being happy, this is a component of it. The second part of the ethical component is the other side. It's refraining from bad, but secondly, it's like taking joy in doing good. It's the 6 perfections, the 4 immeasurables. Okay, so when we think of the ethical component, it's the refraining from harming, basically. It's helping others. But the third component is showing up in the world as best we can in our best of our capacity to serve others, to make others happy. So those 3 components are important. Not harming, taking joy in doing good, and showing up as our highest self to help others. The second part is meditation. We understand that a stable mind is going to be happier for a lot of different reasons. One, if we just look from a pranic perspective, stable mind is supported by stable prana, stable energy, stable thoughts. When we are able to have a good mind meditation, that mindfulness spills out into our day and we can be in the present. And there's a beautiful, pleasant joyfulness that seems to be natural to being present in the present, not complaining about the past, not worried about the future, happy in the present. And our meditation practice feeds into that. It feeds into our capacity to do our practices that we want to do all day long. A big practice for me is this idea of cultivating joy all day, smiling, like to make a spiritual practice of smiling, to train the muscles in our face to have a smile all day and see what that happens to our mind. And then, the ideas we're very versed in of using the meditation platform to see emptiness directly, to have insights into the nature of happiness, nature of reality. Pachi, how am I doing? Too fast, too slow? Okay, I'll slow down a little bit. Okay, thanks. The third component, wisdom. Okay, so we talk about these things a lot. Where does happiness come from? And we talk about, the pen a lot. investigating the nature of pen, or understanding that happiness comes from seeds. And I think the more we hear about them, we should get stable in these ideas of applying emptiness to the pen, but then trying it on different objects. So like, I like to use a rosary or a mala. So just very simply, you know, like look at the rosary, look at the mala. We can see it, right? If I say look at the rosary or look at the mala, no one gets confused. Right? No one's like looking in the background for where it is. But then look at it for what it really is. It's just a string with 108 beads, right? It's just a string. It's got some beads on it. So look at it for what it really is. It's just a rosary. It's just a string with beads. But now, no, it's not. It's a mala. You can see it as a mala. It's a rosary. If I said, pass me the rosary, no one gets confused. No, but look at it as a string with 108 beads. That's what it really is. It's a string with 108 beads. But look at it as a mala. Look at it as 108 beads. When we look at it as a string with 108 beads, what happens to the mala? What mala? There never was a mala in my hand. There's no such thing as a mala, other than the mala that's created by my mind. There never was a mala in my hand. There could never be a mala in my hand, outside of the way I think of it and what I call it. Mala is created by me, created by my seeds. Happiness is created by me, created by my seeds. It doesn't depend on how many zeros are in my bank account, how many days of vacation I get, right? So as we play around with wisdom, I think get solid in the pen, and then we need to increase our capacity and pick a different object. And maybe that object could be happiness. What's the emptiness of happiness? It's too easy just to say, oh, it's seeds. Do the 4 steps. And that's the answer, but we need to be confident in that by really investigating it, really thinking about that deeply. And then these 3 things, they support each other. And these are how we generate happiness. And these things don't negate the other forms of happiness. They don't negate the hedonic external forms of happiness. They reinforce it. Like we can't enjoy the outer forms of happiness if we don't have inner happiness. Okay, so the hedonic, the external happiness it's not bad. The happiness we get from the pie, the ice cream, the sunset, those things are good, but we can't even enjoy those if we don't have an internal sense of happiness. If we don't have some food, if we don't have housing, if we don't have social rights. But somebody can't have lost something very dear to them, and then we go take them their favorite chocolate bar and expect it to make them happy. You know, like the internal happiness supports the enjoyment of the external, and we need the internal to have the external. Otherwise, and we see very depressed people that have everything, right? Everything externally. Doesn't work. We know that. If we aren't in a happy mood, we don't, like I was I was walking to work a little while ago, and the whole block that I was on, somebody had planted a bunch of flowers. And I'd kind of had a crappy week. And I was like, oh my God, someone's made this whole block beautiful. And I realized it hadn't been yesterday. You know, it had been a while. I'd walked by this like at least several days, but just been so in my own funk that I hadn't noticed the beauty of the world. So we're going to move through the next couple slides a little bit more quickly. But I wanted to break down the ideas of ethics and the idea of meditation and the idea of wisdom, because those are the three things that people talked about as contributing to happiness. So we have our vows, but I think here's a big list of other core values. So feel free to screenshot that or take a picture or whatever. We're not going to have time to workshop it like I had hoped, but my idea is that we know that many of us have studied the 10 non-virtues or the Bodhisattva vows. And those are an amazing list to study that serve as the core of our foundation, the yamas and niyamas or whatever. But our core values is so much deeper than that. Like, so which of these words is, like if we were to choose 3 of these words that we really feel as speaks to us as like really core values, like I really believe in a meaningful work is really important, or common humanity, or compassion, authenticity, simplicity. We should be living like, what are our core values that we really are willing to stake our life around, to stand up for these values? What are the 3 in this list that you know, that maybe we want to add to our at least 6 times a day book, that we want to focus on in our ethical, incorporate into our ethical life, and think like, why are these values important to us? Which in these words is like my list? Which in these words is like the things that my parents kind of imposed on me, for better or worse? You know, like the tradition, you know, is that a core value that resonates with me, or is that something my parents kind of passed on to me, for better or worse? So we could kind of go through each of these words at one point and kind of journal them. Which of these values were we able to express when we were young? Or which one of these values do we feel it's not cool to express? Is it okay to smile and express humor? In what situations is it okay? In what situations isn't? Is it the same for each gender? Am I allowed to express some of these as a male in society or female? And incorporate this into our idea on what it means to be living ethically. What's my core values? Because if core values contributes to happiness, then I have to be clear on what my core values are, and then I have to stick to them unfailingly, or as unfailingly as I can. And then I can use my book to track that. Cool. We'll do this slide briefly. And then we'll get into the second component, which is the meditation. So we talked about ethics, talk about meditation, and we talked about wisdom briefly. So the negativity bias is a evolutionary function of the amygdala of our brain. Okay. Sorry, Pachi, I hope that was translatable. There's a part of our brain that's responsible for looking for danger or looking for bad news. And it's like the brain's kind of default state is to be looking for danger in the environment. For when we were way back in a caveman or cave person days, we had to be always on the lookout for what's dangerous in the environment. And that was probably more functional then than it is in a board meeting or in our day-to-day life now. Because that part of our brain, we can't shut it off very easily. And so we have this propensity to look for the bad in the environment. Unpleasant thoughts, unpleasant events, trauma have a greater effect than the positive ones. So if we go on a hike and something like at Diamond Mountain, when we see a rattlesnake and it feels very scary, that imprints on our brain much more strongly. It's more than even the getting to the top of the mountain or getting laughed at when we were in high school or dumped by a partner. Those things, unpleasant things, stick with us. And that's why we need 8 compliments for every criticism. It's a part of our brain that biologically, neurologically looking for the bad and holding on to the bad as a protective measure that maybe isn't so relevant in our society today. So to notice that, we need to actively train our mind to look for the good and to become more sensitive to the good things. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning. Can we fight negative emotions by focusing on the positive? Can we be like Rumi and chase out the demons by focusing on the laughter and the joy? And so being sensitive to like how nice it is. Like for me right now, the sun just came out behind a cloud. And so I've got this really beautiful warmth. So it's like when we walk from the shade into the sun or the sun into the shade, or noticing those plants somebody planted, or the laughter of children, or the feel of the towel as we dry off from a shower, or the smile of our friend. Can we increase our capacity to feel joy? And so there's this practice I've been doing a lot the last year, just called harvesting joy. And it's this idea that here's how it works. Just stop at some point in the day and just check in with the senses, the eyes, ears, nose, mouth, tongue. And is there can I find something in my environment that is nice and pleasant? And I've done this almost a year now, and I've never once struck out. I've never once been unable to find something enjoyable going on right here, right now. Not once, like in 100 times that I've done this. Meaning we don't have to arrange the puzzle pieces of life to find something to enjoy. We just have to harvest it. It's right there. Like, can we just stop enough to recognize the beauty of the present moment that surrounds us? And I'm not suggesting we discount seeds. You know, we can recognize that that's a result from our actions and understand that we need to perpetuate those actions to create those results. But maybe we, as we do that, can just stop for a second and recognize like things are okay. There's beauty all around us. We just have to harvest it. And so I'd like to do that exercise for the last 5 minutes. And I apologize, we'll probably go a few minutes over, but I'll try to keep it to an hour. But let's just try this practice out and sit up straight, get grounded, present in the present. One way to do that is to find some sort of sensation in the body. Maybe the feeling of the ground beneath us or the clothing. And then anchor the mind by finding the sensation of breath at the tip of the nose. And then check in with the sense of hearing in the environment. Is there something pleasant, a hum of a fan or radiator, maybe birds outside? Maybe it's the peacefulness of silence. Now move to the sense of smell. It's the smell of fresh coffee or flowers. Smells from breakfast or dinner. Incense in the room. And then move to the smell of taste. This is often hard for me, but is there a lingering, pleasant sensation from the morning chai or morning coffee? What about the body? Maybe the touch of clothing or the warmth or the coolness of the room. And now you can either keep your eyes closed and imagine the room that you're in, or if you want to open your eyes and look around, just scan the room for things that are pleasing to you. A new plant, your partner working away on the computer, favorite piece of clothing, the images of some friends on the computer screen. And lastly, the thoughts. Have there been some nice thoughts going through your head that you can revisit? Or the momentary gaps between thought. It seems to me that there's joy that is around us, that it's always available to be harvested, to train the mind to be more sensitive to it, overcome the negativity bias, overcome the habits that we were talking about that lead us away from the deeper sources of happiness, ethics and core values that we believe in, stability of mind from meditation, our understanding of seeds, and that this source of happiness of what we bring to the world also reinforces the happinesses that we can find in the world, allows us to enjoy those things too. We don't need to neglect those, make life worth living. With that, come back to the virtual room. Just looking at the chat, I got the message to talk more slowly. Sorry, Pachi. I really tried. So Jacqueline, thanks for setting this all up. And Irina for your help. And Pachi for translating and the work people are doing with ALL and ACIP. And I hope we can take some ideas from this workshop and take them out into the world.
Hi, can I say something? Just wanted to say thank you. I really enjoyed this workshop. And also, I don't know if the translation is happening real time, but there's I don't know if it's an app. It's called Otter, Otter, that I think it's embedded in Zoom. You can just add it. And then like, as you're talking, it translates in English, but you can just like, it does it for you. So it would be really easy to like translate it in Spanish afterwards. And it does like the whole thing. So maybe you guys will be interested in that.
Well, like it spits out an English transcript that you can then translate?
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Any other comments, questions, compliments before we sign off? Epiphanies? Cool. All right. Jacqueline, you got any closing remarks before we embark on our harvesting joy practice for Saturday, November 28th?
I just want to say thank you so much. That was beyond expectations. That was really great. We might have to ask you to teach the at least 6 times book to us sometime soon for anyone who's not sure what that is. Thank you. And I know Pal usually says something about Club de Oro. I know there's Club de Oro people here. So I just want to say, please keep supporting, Pal and what she's doing and what all of you are doing in Mexico. And likewise at 3 Jewels, like, thank you for coming, Leah and Christine. I'm not sure if there's other 3 Jewels people. That used to be my home for 7 years. And yeah, let's just keep supporting each other. And please keep teaching, Earle. We have more events coming up next weekend with, there's a talk with John Brady next Saturday at the same time. So stay tuned. And I hope everyone has a great day. Anyone else?
Cool. Thanks again, Jacqueline. It's good to see some of your familiar faces.